Okay, we're gonna be speaking about book match today. You can see right here, this is our book match, waterfall island. Again, it's very common in a lot of our builds. We'll book match backsplashes. Before we get to the book match element, some of the new technology that's out in the market, I wanna talk about seams. So what's really important is you think about systems and processes as a builder. We all have our SOP, right? Our standard operating procedures. And a lot of us, unfortunately, we learn by mistake, right? I'll give a good example is that a few years back, we were doing a build for a client, a custom build. We're doing the countertop, and our designer and our superintendent had coordinated the seam placement. So what happens is typically when you're laying out a kitchen, similar to this, maybe you have a waterfall edge, maybe you have a large full height backsplash, as you'll see here. It's really important to understand, the size. Like this island, because of the size, we don't have a slab of material that's gonna be this wide. And so we have to have a seam. So you think about seam placement. Some people will have it at the sink. Maybe they have it in thirds. It's really important as you think about that so you can tie that in and hide the seam as best as possible. So long story short, we had this large kitchen, big perimeter area, and the designer and our superintendent had decided on the seam placement. They had signed off, give it to our fabricator, goes and builds it perfect. It's installed, client walks in and says, why is there a seam right here, right? They weren't happy with the seam. And needless to say, that was a check to us, right, from our SOP to say, okay, there are certain things, as we think about those emotional touch points with our clients, we have the emotional roller coaster. This is something I speak about that we give our clients in the sales process, this emotional roller coaster. Well, you have to think about these touch points that the client has because there's a big difference between client experience, right, and customer service. And that client experience is really important. So now, part of our protocol is we have to have the owner sign off, we have to have the designer sign off, and of course, us as the builder sign off on seam placement. No different than shop drawings. We do the same thing with our windows, right? Windows and doors, thresholds. We've been through this with thresholds where, the client may have had an understanding of what that transition would look like with that indoor-outdoor living. So what kind of threshold? Are we picking a flush transition? Are we picking one that's taller? The reason being, not to sidetrack, but as you think about thresholds here in the desert, some of these taller thresholds, yes, there's a step, it could possibly be a trip hazard, but it does protect the client from potential issues, possibly with water, but more importantly, little snakes, scorpions, spiders. It's a lot harder for them to get in when we have these raised thresholds. When we have the seamless flush ones, yes, they get the amazing aesthetic, right? To look outside in, you could dang that same material from the inside of the house out. But the issue is that now you can't trap that. You're always gonna have a little air gap and it's a lot easier for scorpions and bugs and little critters to get through there. And so it's one thing to explain to the client that, it's another thing to sign off and make sure that you have that disclaimer and information. It's no different with this, and same as cabinet drawings. It's really important as you think about the cabinet layout. We start thinking about where are the doors and drawers, right? Where are we putting knives? Where are we putting, utensils? And how are we doing spice racks? All these different things we sign off. And so we do the same thing with our countertops. The reason being is that now the client's on board of where the strategy is for the seam. So with our fabricator, what's really neat, and this is Cambria. So with Cambria, their engineered quartz, Cambria's technology in their fabrication, they actually will take a photo, so a really high resolution photo of the slabs we're purchasing. So we may purchase, let's say 6 slabs of this Britannica warm. We get a snapshot of the exact slab we're purchasing. Now we can take that image, we can upload into the software, and now we can format these slabs to understand where we want to put the book match, right? So that they line up exactly perfect. We can understand waste factor, right? Where do we want to put the sink? Where do we want to cut that out? How are we going to do the backsplash and the perimeter cabinetry so that now it all ties in? And you can see here how important that is. This was all laid out, again, on the software. So again, now with that software, we have this exact cut. It's mitered at that 45 degrees. It ties together, and this is a really nice clean edge here so that book match comes down. So again, not only the sign-off aspect, but make sure that your fabricator is working with this sophisticated software, whether you're working with natural stone, engineered quartz, porcelain, a lot of the different products, marbles that are out there, make sure that you actually are getting footages of each slab so you can put it together and really strategize for the layout so that you get this amazing look when everything's finished.